take those to market. We provide both financial and non-financial support to businesses across the UK, across many sectors. So end of my plug there. So I said warm welcome to this session, which is also about support, about tapping into the different ecosystems of support that exist, both at the local level and regional level, right through to the international level. So the objective of the session is really quite practical, to let you know what types of support are out there, potentially how you go about accessing that support, and maybe some things to think about when you're thinking about accessing support. So questions really to consider. So we've got an hour today. We've got hopefully 5 fantastic panelists. I say 5 because we've definitely got 4, and hopefully the 5th as well. So please do use the chat box should you have any questions that you want to put to the panelists. We hope we'll have time for Q&A at the end. Otherwise, our panelists will try and weave in answers to your questions as they go along. So let me introduce our 5 panelists for today. So firstly, we have Katie Dean. So Katie, do you want to give everybody a wave? So hi, Katie. So Katie is an economist at Liverpool City Region Combined Authority. Katie was behind the development of the City Region's Future Innovation Fund, which she's going to tell us more about. She has also worked on the local industrial strategy, exploring how the combined authority could support increased levels of innovation, translating ideas into commercial application and reality, and how to also support businesses operating in tech for good. Prior to joining the combined authority, Katie worked in economic development consultancy and led reviews of a number of publicly funded innovation support programs in the UK. So welcome, Katie. Secondly, we have Izzy Obeng. Izzy, hi, nice to see you. Great. So Izzy is Managing Director of Foundervine, which is an international training consultancy specializing in acceleration programs for startups and scale-ups. She's also a non-executive director for Capital Enterprise, a body that's raised over £814 million for UK startups. She's also a former trustee for Parkrun aficionados out there. Izzy's featured in the BBC, Telegraph, Times, Forbes, and in 2019 was named by Tech Nation as one of the 50 most influential Black voices in UK tech. Izzy now divides her time between the UK and West Africa. Maybe, I'm not sure if you're there at the moment, Izzy, delivering acceleration programs designed to transform the digital innovation ecosystem. So welcome, Izzy. Next, we've got Julia Stark, who's founder and president of European Women Association. So Julia, if you can give us a wave, double wave, brilliant. So the European Women Association, EWA, is an European organization whose mission is to empower women professionally through their social capital networking platform, EWA ecosystem. With over 30 partnering professional organizations, the ecosystem supports women through monthly business matchmaking sessions, education, and funding opportunities. And Julia has also worked with some of the biggest brands like Google, Microsoft, Deloitte, and many more. So welcome, Julia. Fourthly, we have Arif Zaman, who's Executive Director with the Commonwealth Business Women's Network. This is an accredited organisation directly recognised by 54 governments working on women's economic empowerment and leadership. Arif is also a senior lecturer at the Bloomsbury Institute in London. Earlier in his career, Arif worked for British Airways, and he was also the first associate director of Mosaic, which is founded by the Prince of Wales and creates opportunity for young people, especially Muslims, growing up in the UK's most deprived communities. And our fifth panelist is Eleanor Honigstein. Eleanor, give us a wave, thank you. Eleanor spent the last decade building communities and strategic partnerships around companies' missions, products and services. She currently heads the UK office at the Israel UK Tech Hub, a British government venture responsible for building tech partnerships between Israeli innovations and British businesses. And Eleanor, with her team at the British Embassy, has also launched the UK-Israel Women Leading Innovation Network. So welcome to all our panelists. So to kick off, I wanted to speak, Izzy, to you firstly, a bit about your experiences of helping fledgling innovators and entrepreneurs access support. Before we do so, would you like to just say a little bit more about yourself, Foundervine, and maybe tell us what you're passionate about?
Absolutely, that was a brilliant introduction to add to it. So Foundervine is 3 years old as an organisation, and we were set up by a group of frustrated professionals who didn't necessarily see themselves reflected in the startup ecosystem. So a big part of our mission has always been to increase access and opportunity to underrepresented and underserved communities in the UK. And it's been such a journey, and even more so with COVID, where we've seen a very different type of entrepreneur start to emerge with very different needs in the economy we're going into. And we've been thinking about what our offer looks like in a virtual environment for people who have a very different ability to kind of engage and access learning online as well. So that's Foundervine in a nutshell. And in terms of what I'm passionate about, I'm really passionate about leadership and nurturing leaders from the communities that I engage with every day to consider themselves in board roles and actually build the innovation that we need for tomorrow's economy as well. So that's what guides me, building more leaders.
Fantastic. So from your work, I mean, we know there's various barriers to accessing support. What are some of the most common barriers that you've seen in place for underserved communities and women innovators, both, I suppose, financial barriers to financial support or non-financial support?
Absolutely, and I think that it's very easy to default to talking about funding when it comes to barriers that founders from underrepresented communities of all kinds face. And if we kind of take a step back in terms of the challenges that we face, a huge part is access to networks and what these networks look like. So if you come from a background that isn't typically represented in the startup space, in the business sector, there are so many things that you need to kind of learn in terms of how to articulate yourself, how to articulate your story, and who you need to know in order to get what you need. And so I think a big challenge that a lot of founders that I coach, founders that we have on our program space, is the confidence and the self-esteem when it comes to accessing different networks. It's the ability to kind of be able to hold yourself in different environments when you're kind of learning how to run a business and when you're growing your business. And a big part of our programs are about kind of introducing entrepreneurs of different kinds, particularly women, to the stakeholders that they may potentially be part of their supply chains one day, they may be funders one day, and just really giving that access, which has become more challenging, I would say, in a virtual environment as well. So access to networks is a big one, and that leads to access to funding. I'd say learning opportunities. Accelerators are a huge benefit to founders who are starting out and may not have the networks themselves. And joining accelerators gives you access to a peer network of people who are like-minded and who can help you grow, but also access to professionals and learning opportunities that can help elevate your thinking about what it takes to grow and scale a business.
We're going on to talk about the power of networks later, so that's a great intro to that. For those that are funding support, providing support, let's say Innovate UK being one of those, is there any message from you to us and to other people providing support in terms of things that might need to change?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the conversation, unfortunately, at the moment, overwhelmingly focuses on deficiencies in founders, and when we
Right.
talk about what needs to change in our industry. And I think we talk a lot about, you know, helping people build confidence and skills, etc., etc. But we talk less about the things that we ourselves as institutions need to do to be more inclusive and to provide more access opportunities for a different audience. And so I think one thing, I also speaking very generally here, but all organizations who provide opportunities to entrepreneurs in different ways, it's really trying to listen to what's happening on the ground. And I think that there is a tendency sometimes to reinvent the wheel in the desire to create opportunities for diverse communities, but there are amazing organizations already doing that work on the ground who understand the really specific contextualized needs of these communities. So partnerships and collaboration where you bring in these people to support that work are so important. And also recognizing where there might be opportunities to be more inclusive internally, because there's no point doing all that work to bring people in and then they get there and they find an environment in which they don't feel supported or they don't feel seen or represented. So I think there's a big piece around what can we be doing as institutions to build inclusion internally, to educate our people on unconscious bias and, you know, why systemic and institutionalized discrimination takes place, and doing that work first and then creating the kind of environment that these entrepreneurs can find the support that they need to grow as well.
Excellent. So moving on, a slightly, I suppose, different issue about support. So I think from my view, I've seen businesses potentially accessing the wrong type of support at the wrong time. And I think particularly when you're quite a fledgling enterprise, you might think I need, you know, it's the money that's important, and actually it's not. So is there advice that you give to the young innovators and fledgling enterprises that you support in terms of the steps to take when they're thinking of accessing support, what to think through? Any guidance that way?
Yeah, so going back to the funding conversation, I think because of the way that we talk about growing businesses in the UK, the way we talk about what businesses need to grow in the tech community, I think a lot of entrepreneurs think that they need to immediately be thinking about raising money and doing that work to raise money. And what often then happens is that these young entrepreneurs don't necessarily have the operational infrastructure or the traction that they need to be interesting to funders, and recognizing that the vast majority of businesses bootstrap and kind of grow through just selling whatever they do just through sales, as opposed to necessarily getting institutional funding. And then you spend a lot of time speaking to people who can't necessarily help you grow and who you aren't ready for, and then get disillusioned by the whole process. And so I think that piece around really trying to diagnose, depending on what stage a founder is, what they need. And in the beginning, that is very much access to a community of people who are doing it anyway, and that community building becomes so important even at pre-idea stage. And so just going back to what we do at Foundervine, a huge part of our work is simply running events that allow people who are pre-idea stage or early stage to just get access to the community of people who they might need later. And so really contextualizing support and saying at that stage, that might be what you need, but as you grow, providing access to different types of organization depending on the stage you're at. So a lot of accelerators, I think, can be quite generalistic and not necessarily tailored to entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds who are scaling their business and who are looking to enter corporate supply chains or generate revenue that way, or who simply just need access to basic business modeling skills. So I think greater differentiation in terms of the offer to support entrepreneurs is really needed, and also just providing entrepreneurs with access to more humans, more people for coaching and mentoring opportunities, so they know what to do and what to avoid at the different stages in their journey as well.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Izzy. I think that's really valuable advice to anybody. And yeah, I echo that as well, the kind of peer networks, just the sheer value in speaking to other people who are going through potentially similar things or can relate to where you're at is super valuable. So thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to speak to Katie now. So Katie, can I ask you just to tell us a bit more about the support that the Liverpool City region or the combined authority is giving, and how you're supporting women innovators?
Yeah, of course. So so I work for the Liverpool City Region Combined Authority. So we have devolved responsibilities and funding from national government that we use to improve our local economy, and innovation is a big part of that. So Janet, you previously mentioned the Future Innovation Fund, which I can touch on more kind of in further questions. But a lot of the support we provide is either financial or non-financial, and we try to support businesses kind of right through the life cycle. So some of the stuff Izzy was saying, from businesses from when they're first starting up right through to when they're scaling, and all of that with a bit of a relentless focus on supporting those from underrepresented groups as well. So we want to make sure that our support is reaching as many beneficiaries as possible from a wide range of groups.
Fantastic. And what's one thing you're passionate about, Katie, right now?
Oh, I don't know if it's more of an obsession at the moment than a passion, but something I'm really interested in is just how we can build a fairer economy, and an economy that works for more people. And I don't think that we've got a more opportune time to reimagine what our economy could look like than now, in kind of, you know, the wake of the pandemic. So when I'm not at work, that's what I'm spending most of my time obsessing about at the moment.
Yeah. As you say, it's just, are we ever going to get this time again in the next 100 years to do it? So good timing. I suppose it would be good to just understand a bit more about why the combined authority is investing in innovation. Some people might not understand or might not realise that the bodies and other local and regional authorities do invest so heavily. So could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. It's a great question. Why should anyone invest in innovation? So our remit is essentially threefold. It's to improve the economy, the environment, and social inclusion. And no matter what evidence you look at or what research you read, a lot of it will tell you that innovation is so important for long-term economic development. And when you think about it, it's really obvious why, because when you apply innovation to a particular business or sector or industry, it can completely transform it. Or what we're seeing a lot of at the moment is that innovation is creating brand new industries and whole new sectors. And so it's a really, really critical component of economic development. But it doesn't come for free, and quite often innovation takes a long time and it's complex and there's a lot of risk involved. So I think for authorities like the Combined Authority and other regional support providers, I think if you want to reap the benefits of innovation and what innovation can do for an economy, you have to be prepared to invest in and support the businesses that are going to drive that innovation.
Fantastic. And the support that you provide, is it very much for businesses based in the region and for impact in the region, or do you have programs that are for businesses out with the region or for impact out with?
Yeah, so like most regional support providers, we'll typically look at supporting businesses that are based in the city region, and that's not uncommon. So when you're looking for support, it's best to look at the kind of regional support provider in your area. Something like innovation, whilst we look to invest in businesses that are based here, I think we all know that kind of innovation actually has no boundaries, and so we look to support businesses that are based here, but then the impacts of that innovation often kind of transcend local, regional, global geographies, and so the impacts often felt much further afield. But we tend to look at supporting businesses that are based here, that are based within our region.
And I suppose to Izzy's point about, you know, there being barriers, what we discussed, there being lots of different barriers to underserved and women innovators accessing support. What's been your experience within the Combined Authority about the uptake of support from women innovators, and have you decided to do anything differently to how you were doing it before?
Yeah, it's a really good time to ask that question, because we've got a very live example of it at the moment. So so we spoke about the Future Innovation Fund, and we launched that as a programme to provide grant finance to businesses that were able to innovate either in response to or in spite of the pandemic. And in the very first round of funding, so the funding comes in multiple rounds, and in the first round of funding, less than 30% of applications were actually submitted by women innovators. And then naturally that then meant that even fewer women innovators went on to receive support through that programme. So as a combined authority that's kind of really committed to equality and inclusion, we had to look quite hard at the support we were providing, and why we were not seeing the type of uptake we expected from women innovators. And so in terms of the second part of the question about what did we do or what did we change, and it's really interesting listening to Izzy speak about this, because it sounds so simple, but the first thing we did is we listened, and we spoke to quite a broad range of people to try and understand what needs to be improved so that our support does have a much greater uptake from women innovators. So it's both what needs to improve and how we can improve it, and we spoke to those that actually have a much better understanding of that than we may. And so through that we learned a lot. So we learned about things like language and how support offers are communicated, and that innovation means a lot of different things to different people, and so the importance of making sure that all types of innovators can see themselves in the support that you're providing. And we heard some kind of anecdotal things of quite often, you know, a woman might look at support and think, no, that's not for me, because of the words that are being used or because of how it's being presented, whereas actually it was never intended that support would never be for a female innovator. But actually I think the biggest thing we changed is our own process. And again, I think this links to some of the stuff that Izzy was talking about, because what we recognised is that we could do all of this stuff to increase the number of women innovators that are aware of our support or that are going to apply for our support. But the most important thing is that our process then allows us to give support to those women. So it's not just about how many women apply, but it's how many women are successful. And I think this was kind of almost the biggest learning point for us, because when a woman innovator is accessing support, at some point a decision is made as to whether she will receive that support or not. And whether that process is automated or led by one person or led by 10 different people, there'll be biases in the process. And the only kind of real way that you will get over those biases, because they can't be eliminated, is if the people that are providing the support kind of accept that and then make a really conscious effort that their support is going to support females. And I feel like I don't know how much sense I'm making here, but I think what I'm trying to say is that you can do a lot of things that almost tinker around the edges, but I think what you have to do is you have to make sure that your process enables women to access support. And I think it sounds really simple, but I think it's really important. And I think that, you know, this year's International Women's Day, one of the themes is choose to challenge. And so I think that we all have to challenge those processes or those support or the provision that just quite blatantly is not providing support for females or for women.
Yeah, I hear you on that very much. Katie, I think we both know, a lot of people know that there's lots of support out there. At times it can be really confusing if you're starting out to know where to go first. Any advice quickly on that?
Yeah, I will be quick. I think you know, every kind of ecosystem, whether it's a local, regional, global, will talk about this kind of one front door approach. So I think for anybody trying to access support, it's almost finding your front door, find the right front door for you, and almost a trusted advisor that can help you navigate the support system and find, again, to pick up on a point you made before, but to find what the right support is at the right time.
Brilliant. And I think you're working towards that within the combined authority of being a one front door for businesses within the region.
Yeah.
And I also just wanted to point out to people as well, a plug for the Innovate UK Edge team. So we have advisors across the regions of the UK. It can be found on the website Innovate UK. I've forgotten it. innovateukedge.ukri.org. And you can speak to an advisor who will discuss firstly what types of support might be helpful to you, but also where to look for that support. So just wanted to give a quick plug to that too. So Katie, thank you very much. So if we can move on to Eleanor now. Eleanor, to talk about something that's super close to my heart and also to yours. It's about support really to go global and to think globally. So if we can bring in Eleanor, would you just talk us through a little bit more about yourself, the work that the Tech Hub is doing, the UK Israel Tech Hub?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me today. Really delighted to be here. So as you said at the beginning, we are a British government venture. We are based between the UK and the British Embassy in Israel. What we do on a day-to-day is really creating those bilateral connections or tech partnerships, if you like, between the UK and Israel. So on the one hand, we help UK companies tap into the best innovation that's coming from Israel. And on the other hand, we help to position the UK as a partner of choice to Israeli startups that are looking to expand globally. And recently we've seen up close the underrepresentation of women in tech. So we wanted really to utilize that strategic position that the hub has and the British Embassy in Israel has between the UK and Israel. So we launched the UK Israel Women Leading Innovation Network. And here really our aim is to create those international collaboration and really facilitate business and investment opportunities for both Israeli and British women in tech and innovation, and in a way really tap into the pool of knowledge and expertise that's coming from both sides. And I'm going to touch on it a bit later on. Now,
Sorry, I just wanted to ask you the question as well. What one thing are you passionate about, or one of the many things I'm sure you're passionate about, Eleanor, right now?
So I love that question because I love to think about my biggest passions, and it's really about driving people towards missions that I really believe in. So the past 10 years, I've been working on education, community, diversity, and all those missions that I feel passionate about. And so technology innovation for me is really an incredible catalyst for creating that impact and that positive change in society. So I guess my passion lies in that intersection between technology and positive impact. And I'm also a facilitator for Google's initiative I'm Remarkable, again, to create that change about self-promotion and confidence in women and underrepresented groups. And I'm also co-chairing the Upward London network of women executives. So it's all coming together, that big impact that I like doing.
Sounds great. So value in going global, right? So I'm very, very passionate about getting more UK businesses to kind of think global as early as they can in their journeys, with the hope that they will then be able to go global as well. I mean, sitting in the UK, yes, we've got a decent market size, but we are still a relatively small country, a small market, small percentage of the world population. So from your experiences with the Tech Hub and supporting Israeli businesses to kind of go global, you know, what to you are the benefits of looking outside of your own country, even if you're a young fledgling business?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question because actually the hub was actually built on the premise that international collaboration is key for innovation and for growth. And a lot of the work that we do is around designing initiatives that bring together global innovators, investors, market experts. For example, in February last year, we held a healthcare delegation where we brought leading Israeli startups to meet with NHS, with AstraZeneca, with Boots. We've partnered with Global EdTech Startup Development Program, and here we brought actually Israeli and UK startups to kind of meet each other and have that peer-to-peer collaboration. We're also holding an accelerator for the minority group of Arab Israelis, and then we also bring speakers and investors from the UK as mentors. So we do a lot of work in that international space. And from what we've seen, one of the key benefits, I guess, for international collaboration is globalization of knowledge. So if we take EdTech, for example, just to make it a little bit more tangible. So the largest markets in EdTech are Europe, US, and Asia. And each one of them really holds unique strong points. So the US is a leader in investment in e-learning. Asia, we see strong emphasis on after-school tutoring and online testing. And in Europe, we have a number of countries that are really leading the way in education. And so innovative edtech businesses in each of these markets can really learn about trends, about successes, or also about failings when they collaborate with each other. And when it comes to benefits to product design and market fit. Again, as an example, if we take Israeli technologies who are really leading the way in AI, in cyber, in machine learning, they focus a lot often about the actual product rather than the market. And so when they partner with businesses from the UK, for example, which is a larger market, Israeli founders can have better insights in understanding of the need for the product. And British businesses, on the other hand, can utilize the deep tech capabilities that Israeli businesses have to offer. And of course, you know, when we talk about bringing in diverse talents, it's about the diversity of thoughts and perspectives that you gain from collaborating internationally. It contributes to innovation, to creativity, profitability. And kind of seeing the Israeli startups really in recent years, I can really say that from day one almost, they organize themselves as international companies. And we see also that investment trends, for example, starting to factor in many markets rather than just look at each individual market in silos.
Mm. Yeah, I think exactly. There's so many benefits, I think, in a nutshell, isn't there? And it's not just the kind of bottom, well, ultimately the bottom line benefits, but so much more before that, so much more in terms of kind of richness that it brings to your company. So any advice really on people who are looking to explore international collaboration? What are some of the steps that a business could take towards that?
Yeah, so I really can relate to what Izzy and Katie said about the power of networks, because it's really about getting to know the local market. And you know, today in our remote reality, we're no longer limited by location and can really connect globally without the hassle and expenses of travel. So in a way, the past year has actually brought different ecosystems and markets together, and we can see that deals, partnerships, investments are all done remotely. The hub ourselves, we changed everything and we've done everything remotely the past year, demo days, delegations, office hours. So it's a great time to expand the network and really leverage that today's reality. And another thing that I'll say is about understanding the cultural differences when it comes to cross-border collaboration. Processes such as follow-ups, negotiations, they're done very differently in each region. And one of the things that we're trying to do at the hub is kind of bridge that cultural gap and educate each side about the other side and how they do business. So having that global mindset early on and really seeing your innovative product or service from both a global and a regional perspective, I think can be really beneficial.
Agreed. I think, as I said before, I think the earlier that one could look to do it, even if you've got maybe no immediate plans to explore international markets, but just being able to have a conversation or start your journey is really powerful. Any thoughts on how we can make it easier for female innovators to participate in global programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that come to mind when we started the UK-Israel Women Leading Innovation, it was important for us to address real needs. So we went and we spoke with a lot of women across the UK and Israel who work in tech and innovation and sciences. And again, relating to Izzy and Katie, one of the issues that came is really the issue of network and funding. So what I say on really at an organizational or company level is about finding that balance between creating dedicated programs for female and really bringing them together, and between including women in existing programs that we have, delegations, scouting projects. And this is something that we're really working towards at the Hub, to really strike that balance and have both elements, if you like. And I hope that in a way, by increasing that pool of female founders, we can really tackle statements that we sometimes hear, that there's not enough deal flow of women, because this is really about being proactive and reaching out to those women ahead of time and building that strong network, so you can involve them when you have a project.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Eleanor. So I think we'll leave it there. We're going to talk about the power of networks next. I think that's a common theme that's coming through so far. So can we please bring in Yulia and Arif as well? Yulia, would you like to introduce yourself and the European Women Association?
Yeah. Well, I was listening, and I'm so pleased to hear that common red thread, like networking and funding and communities. That's beautiful. Well, my name is Julia Stark. I'm based in Belgium. I'm the president of the European Women Association. And in the last 10 years, we worked mainly offline through delegations, conferences. We had accelerator program. And since last year, we moved everything online. So that was a challenge, to be honest. But we have pivoted and said, listen, instead of focusing on B2C, like focusing on only our women, we will now unite partners. So European Women Association is actually a digital platform for other professional organizations. It can be Israeli Women in Innovation, it can be any chamber of commerce that join on that one ecosystem and exchange resources, knowledge, expertise, and networks. So that's what we do.
Excellent. And what are you passionate about at the moment, Yulia?
People. I've been always passionate about people. The last 10 years, women, because my own experience, I had some challenges to build my business, being a mom and a wife and a daughter. So helping women, but also building deep relationships. There is so much noise out there. There are so many distractions, and it becomes even more challenging to build deep human connections that actually lead to, of course, business opportunities, but also friendships. So it's all about connecting people in my case.
Nice. So from your perspective, why should a woman, I mean, it's a fairly obvious question, but why should a woman innovator consider joining a network such as EWA? What will it bring to her life? How will it enrich it?
It's a good question. Before we even built that platform, that ecosystem, we first asked our ladies, like, how can we serve? Because when COVID hit and everybody was locked at home and couldn't travel, couldn't do any, conferences, nothing. All of them said, listen, you really need a network, a place, a safe place that we trust, where we can network and build relationships and scale our businesses. So the reason why we have pivoted from B2B to B2C is that we could give more value to our members. And the only difference that we probably have here on that platform is that we are focusing on bringing the professional networks together on that platform, meaning people or women and men, by the way, are more than welcome, that are join the platform, they tap into an ecosystem that it's so much larger than it used to be in our case, only Belgium or Netherlands, for example. They tap into a network of Bulgaria, UK, Ireland, US, Singapore. Suddenly you are connected to so many wise women and men. You are connected to investors, because I myself represent the World Business Angels Forum. And suddenly you have access to business angels in 102 countries. We work quite closely because we are based in Brussels, so you must work with European Commission. So thanks to our partners, we can give workshops and trainings how to get funded by Europe. And all of that is only possible when you unite your forces. So that's the differentiator. And the cool stuff is, I mean, it's free for the members. So that's another reason to join.
That's great. Yeah. So I can maybe understand what answer you're going to give, but there's so many networks out there, I feel. So how do you make the choice about which network to join, and what are the questions that you should ask yourself when you're thinking about joining a network?
Oh, I think it depends on the stage you are in your professional development, and you need to ask yourself, what kind of challenges do I face? Are you a startup and you need funding? That's one network. Are you a C-level employee that has some challenges to get promoted? Are you a student, or you are a more established entrepreneur that wants to invest? We sit down and we literally draw a map, and dreaming, and I think that would be soon possible, of being that one platform where all of these women can feel home. So we would create circles within the ecosystem. So, okay, this is a circle for startups. You can upload your pitch deck, and every few months we will introduce you to business angels. We will have a circle for established business women who are looking for, who have their own funds, investment funds. There's, for example, one partner in Germany. They are looking to invest in female founders in tech industry. So there will be another circle. So we would segment our network so that one day they will all meet each other. But I think you're right, it's quite challenging to find one fit. Sometimes you'll have to hop between networks. And I think one thing is important, that you are somehow connected to a local network. We just spoke with the ladies, like Katie gave a few examples. You need to be connected to your local network, and then to a more international one. And the question is, like, where do we feel safe enough? Because when we were doing research, market research a year ago on what's out there, and we've seen there are so many international matchmaking, B2B matchmaking platforms, and over 85% of users were men. And so we asked, like, how come? I mean, there's so many business opportunities out there. And apparently women did not feel safe. They didn't want just have a transaction. They first want to have a connection and trust before they would do business together. So then we said, all right, let's focus on social and deep connections first. That will lead to business, secondly, and then we will support them later on that. So that's how we have changed that. And we are growing quite fast and organically. So that's the beauty of it. But again, I mean, we need to be flexible. And maybe in a year, we'll have to change our model as well.
Yeah. I think this point about trust, you're right, is very important. Particularly to women, not saying it isn't to men, but I think particularly to women. Yeah. Lovely. Arif, if I can bring you in here as well. So I suppose the same question to you, you know, what's the, you know, why should a woman innovator consider joining the Commonwealth Businesswomen's Network, and what any advice you've got for somebody who's looking to join a network as well? I think you're on mute, Arif.
I've just remedied that. I think, no, I mean, one of the issues here is, you know, the what keeps me awake at night question. And I suppose as the only, you know, male on this panel, let me just say that I've got 2 young daughters, and what keeps me awake is that 9-year-old and 13-year-old aren't going to have the same challenges that we know women are having right now. and the evidence isn't great on it. So I think we need to be much more collaborative in our approach, much more urgent in our focus. And that's where the Commonwealth has a critical role to play. We have 54 countries. We know that the benefits of doing business across the Commonwealth as has been highlighted in research done for the heads of government, is a 20% less reduced cost of doing business. So that's an absolute advantage. If you combine that with the fact that the Commonwealth demographic, 60% of the Commonwealth population is under the age of 30. And then if you say that some of the fastest growing economies in the world today are in the Commonwealth, there's a strong business case there, which I think we've been hearing a lot more about in the last 2 or 3 years. So that's certainly part of it. I think the other thing I would say is the Commonwealth is, what do people think when they say Commonwealth? Is it just the Commonwealth Games, or is it the Queen sitting in a or in a photograph with 54 heads of government? Much more than that. It's really about a community. There are about 90 or so Commonwealth organizations. So it's really a plug and play. You have universities, what Yuli was talking about, you've got educators, you've got maths educators, you've got private sector bodies and networks, you've got accountants, you've got insurance industry now. So there are a number of these organizations that provide a ready-made plug and play opportunity. Women parliamentarians, yes, there's a very strong network of Commonwealth women parliamentarians, women in local government. I think that's very important. And so I think these opportunities provide an opportunity to have an impact. And if you're an accredited organization, and we're one of the accredited organizations, we're not only directly recognized by governments, but what that means is that when ministers meet, we're the only organization that gets invited in the room. That has our mandate, because we're accredited in the same way that the other accredited organizations are also invited in the room. And I think that's really important. So I think that's an important reason why. But I think the other reason around this, Janet, is around the support levers. The Commonwealth has an emerging set of support levers available. The UK government has been quite effective in the last 2 or 3 years as pushing that with its initiative on trade connectivity called the Commonwealth Trade Connectivity Agenda. We've come together with yourselves and others with the Commonwealth Women Entrepreneurs Summit in April to sort of push that forward, to sort of push more of those support levers. So I think there are opportunities around that, and I think that's what how I'd respond. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. So hopefully lots of information there about networks. Yuli, I wanted to come back to you on support because, as you said, you're based in Belgium, but you are obviously working internationally. You are an international businesswoman. So really, just from your personal perspective, to understand what's been supportive, what's been the most useful form of support you've received, be that financial, non-financial, and potentially what's been least useful.
You would think that European Commission, for example, there's so much information out there, would be the most strong one support, but once you dive into it, it's so hard to get answers and support. So the bureaucracy is often quite challenging. So what helped me personally is investing in my own network. So in the past, that would be, my job was like almost 60% of my time, I would be a keynote speaker internationally. So I would meet amazing people on stages and having a talk with a glass of wine with them after the event would open much more doors than if you would go through the official way. So for me personally, I've learned the importance of networking and trust. So that what still for me is the case. I invest a lot of time and energy in getting to know people better, understanding how I can refer, how can I help. That's one thing. And then networking, for example, with business angels. When you're scaling, growing your network again, it's about trust. And what I've seen in our community, many women would like, oh, gee, I need 1 million to raise, and they start to network to find that money, but that's a bit late. You really need to start today to building that credibility and network, because one day you'll need that money. So it's about connection. It's about who you know and who knows you. And being visible. I think investing in your own brand, even though if you maybe a small business owner or like self-employed or a freelancer, I see the value of being visible and out there and networking with people, maybe even higher than you, with higher networks, so you can learn, and that eventually will lead to beautiful opportunities when the time is right again. So that was for me the case, like business angels networks and personal networking through international travel.
Excellent. And Izzy, from your perspective as well, being an international woman of business, what's really worked for you in terms of the support you've received?
Yeah, I think it's the great thing about this whole pandemic, if there has been great things, has been the breakdown and people feeling like they needed to meet in person. And I think that if you are not based in the UK, that can be quite difficult sometimes. And, you know, pre-pandemic, I found myself on a plane every 4 to 6 weeks, just so I had my feet on the ground and I can be face to face with clients and they realized I was still there, even though I was working remotely. And it's been absolutely brilliant that everyone's now remote, in that it's really broken down that barrier that people have, that, you know, you need to be in person before you strike a deal or before you kind of engage in a long-term relationship. And so that's been fantastic. And I think that that should continue sort of post-pandemic as well, because the more comfortable we are kind of communicating and collaborating in virtual environments, the more open we are to having employees in parts of the world where we'll never physically meet them, or collaborating with organizations in different countries where we also might not meet them as well. And I think that there's a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs and professionals based in Ghana, where I'm based in South Africa, in Nigeria, where we've worked as well, to really, really engage in a way that I don't think would have been possible pre-pandemic as well. So really interesting time for innovation, for building digital communities, and for collaboration as well.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I speak about within Innovate UK, our organisation, I think there's been quite a cultural change in terms of acceptability of where people are based throughout the country. It's a really positive thing to, an encouraging thing to see. But yeah, on a global scale, I think it's really kind of paradigm shifting as well. Excellent, thank you. So if anybody has particular questions to ask, then do pop them in the chat. I know we are getting towards the end of time. Thanks to those that have asked questions as well, and hopefully we've covered those across. So Karen, I see you've raised your hand.
Hi, good morning from New Jersey.
Hi there. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, and I'm sorry I'm late, so it's possibly it was covered. I heard Eleanor, and by the way, I lived and worked in Israel for 2 years, so as a Yofi. So the notion of equity, inclusion, diversity, and globalization, and I think Eleanor mentioned it briefly, that you include underserved groups in some of your processes. But I was in Boston for 15 plus years full time, so very embedded in the, and still am in the innovation ecosystem. And there is a huge equity, inclusion, diversity movement, if you will, everywhere. But Boston has a particular kind within the innovation space. And I think it seems really important, and I'm sorry again if you've already covered this, but that aspect of globalization, bringing cohorts together from different countries who are specifically focusing on that aspect as well. And I wonder if anyone can speak to that, if that is being done, if what you think the benefits are, etc.
Who would like to speak to that? Eleanor, are you okay to respond?
I just want to say that it's a really, really important question. And what we do at the Hub is really the way using technology as a catalyst to promote diversity in society, really. So as I mentioned, the Arab Accelerator that we are holding in Israel, we are also bringing in UK mentors as well. So we're creating that synergy between the two ecosystems. But we are also looking at creating those connections that you just mentioned from diverse communities in both countries, because I think there's a lot there that each one can learn. And just to give an example, I think a couple of years ago, the Science and Innovation Network at the British Embassy with Innovate UK actually held a Women in AI mission to Israel of small businesses that are led by women from the UK that went to meet with the female founders in Israel. So that was a great way to really bring the ecosystems. And I know that quite a few relationships are really still strong. So we are doing that, and there's a lot of work to be done as well.
Great. Thank you. It's a great question. Okay.
Can I just mention very briefly? I think, if I can, Jen, I think on this diversity piece, I think one of the areas that's really exciting is around diaspora networks. You know, we don't talk about it enough, actually, but there's a real opportunity. And I mean, Izzy's nodding her head, and absolutely, there is a and Izzy, you're probably part of it. I mean, the Black Women in Tech network of Tech London Advocates is just an example. It's one of the fastest growing networks of the 20 or so that they have. It's a Black Women in Tech network. And I think that's just a tip of the iceberg. And if you mirror that with opportunities in Canada and Australia, in different parts of the Commonwealth, there is a significant opportunity tapping into second, third generation diaspora. I don't know whether Izzy, I see you nodding, but I mean, I think that's, I just wanted to highlight that because I think that's a really important opportunity we need to do more with, and the government needs to also recognize that and be leveraging that much more.
Yeah, there's one thing that we're thinking about within Innovate UK, because I mean, just the statistics around the diaspora networks and levels of export. I mean, somebody from a diaspora community or connected to is much more likely to export. So it's really seeing how we can support that. Conscious of time, so thank you very much. I hope that's been a really useful session for people. I think it's been interesting, covered quite a lot of ground. Before we go, so there was a closing question to all the panelists. If you can answer quite briefly, really, can you leave the audience with, say, a favorite book of yours, something they should read, or the mantra or quote that you're going by? So 30 seconds to each. Arif, let's start with you. You're on mute.
Yes, I mean the one that's I mean, I think the silo buster, Gillian Tett, which is, she brought up a few years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, but Gillian Tett, probably one of the best journalists in the world today, editor of one of the editors of the Financial Times, or lead editors. Gillian Tett, Silo Busters. If we can break down the silos, we're more than halfway there, Janet.
Fantastic, thank you. Julia.
A must-read book, Stealing Fire by Stephen Kotler. He speaks about neuroscience and how to get into flow to be more creative and innovative. That's a must-read for all of us.
Excellent. I'm writing all these down. Eleanor.
I'm going to go for a mantra. So if you think you're too small to have an impact, try going to bed with a mosquito in your room. And this is really about calling everyone to make an impact, no matter who you are, where you're from. Every shift that we do in our behavior really can create an inclusive culture. So really see who is not at the table and invite and include them.
I love that. Having suffered many a mosquito as well. So yeah. Katie.
Yeah, I'll go for book Humankind, which, Julia, listening to what you were just saying, I'm going to recommend that you read it, but it's about, all humans are actually innately good and what society could be like if it was just a bit more kind.
Oh, brilliant. And Izzy?
I would go for Radical Candor by Kim Scott. I think that gave me a really interesting perspective on supporting scaling teams, which is a must for any founder. And I am surrounded by mosquitoes where I am at the moment, so I completely hear you, Eleanor.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much to our panel, and thank you very much to everybody who joined this session. I hope it's been useful, and enjoy the rest of the day. Happy International Women's Day. Bye.
And
thank you so much, Janet.
Commonwealth Day. And Commonwealth Day.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.